This podcast is sponsored by Magic Rock Brewing. Currently, you can get free delivery on all orders over £40 and 10% of all online orders by using our code of TakesThatChance10.
Jepson's there, Billy in, a goal, Chris Billy, Huddersfield Town. The most famous goal of Chris Billy's life. Is this the moment for Lee Fowler? It is. Take your place in Division 2, Huddersfield Town.
Ruby and Steve Simonson's boots now. He's missed. Steve Simonson clears the frame of the goal and collapses in a heap of tears. Huddersfield Town are promoted.
Mustafa Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance!
Good evening and welcome to episode 104 of the Andy Takes That Chance podcast. If you went down to Ewood Saturday, you were sure of a big scoreline. Town faced off against a very relaxed Blackburn Rovers side, but were taken apart inside 60 minutes. Carlos Corberán has started to become visibly and audibly stressed and worried. Is the pressure now getting to our beleaguered head coach? Meanwhile, Man City won the League Cup this week for the fourth time in a row. That's 4 successful League Cup campaigns since Town last won a League Cup tie against Rotherham back in 2017. There have been a few announcements of interest by the HTSA this week, one of them about assets of community value, and I'll loop in a quick interview with Alisdair Bell from the HTSA on that one. And speaking of sustainable, we have a 4-strong panel. Joining myself, Matt Shaw is the perfect man to know if you need to drown your sorrows after a 5-2 defeat, or hopefully after the next game, need a beer to celebrate something. It's Magic Rock founder and CEO, Richard Burhouse. Hi, Richard.
Evening, Matt. How are you doing?
Good. So, along with Richard, 2 lads who are always thirsty, whether that's in the pub or browsing the internet, it's Dan Pozza-Porritt and Simon Copland. Good evening, everyone. We all okay?
Yeah, evening, gents. Yeah, very well, thank you.
Fantastic. Hello to everybody online as well. So, Dan Peckett's joined us already, and there's 20 watching straight off the bat, so that's good. Good to see you all there online. So, let us know online what you thought of the Blackburn game. I can't imagine there'll be too much split opinion on that. So, one thing that's not sustainable, unlike the stadium, is the level of performance we are seeing from the Terriers. But I do want to cut that short for a moment because I think I'd rather talk about beer as well. So, Rich, just let us know what's going on at Magic Rock. What's going on there now? Can people like me come over for a pint? Do we book online? What's the process?
Yeah, we're open. At least we're open at the tap room at Birkby, the one the town fans will be familiar with. It's a booking system. I think we've got extra tables in there though. So during the week there's reasonably good space. The weekends are busier, so you need to check it out really. But there's live booking via the website. If you go to the tap rooms tab on the website, you can book in, and it's going all right. I mean, as right as only being able to drink outside and 50% capacity can be, it's going well. It's nice to be able to have beer again, I suppose. So I've been down there on the other Friday and did my bit to help our sales.
Good stuff. Yeah, I'm sure we'd all like to get back out to the pubs sooner rather than later, especially the food trucks down there. You know, people like me are suckers for those food trucks, food trucks. So hopefully we'll see you all again, and hopefully next season when the football's back. Hopefully.
Absolutely.
Right then, so Brady did the preview show this week. Cozzy also joined Rovers Chat for a little one-to-one and preview. They were absolutely adamant that we would win this game at a canter as well. Blackburn were absolutely stunned as to what came at them. You know, Stephen Chicken wrote a fantastic article, I thought, with his usual 5 conclusions, really, really accurate, and he didn't shirk anything. You know, and I don't think he overstepped any boundaries either, which was fantastic. He made a mention that they were laughing at Huddersfield Town's performance in the press room about how we took the game to them and how we just fell completely into their trap. For me, it started a little bit like the Forest game. They came at us first 20 minutes, but the main difference really was Blackburn scored, and you can really see the mental struggles that a lot of the players have at Huddersfield, and that really came home to roost. But Poz, this is a strong Huddersfield Town side. This isn't one bereft of injuries. This is arguably only really Christopher Schindler and Isaac Mbenza. And again, like I say, arguably away from a supposed best 11. You really expected a little bit more, especially considering they're mentally on the beach and we're still scrapping a little bit.
Yeah, I think it were probably a little bit naivety, really. I think Blackburn are one of those sides that they like the space in behind to play into. I think early season they were really good at getting forward and scored quite a lot of goals. And I think the way to set up against Blackburn is almost to sit deep and try and play them on the counter attack, which from what I saw we sort of did the opposite. I know Carlos came afterwards and sort of said, we want 3 points, and we kind of went all out to get those 3 points and probably pushed a little bit too far upfield and got caught on counter-attack ourselves. But it just shows that little bit of lack of understanding of how to set up against teams. I know, like you say, it's almost full strength. You've got a couple of players there that are coming back. I think Toffolo only played a couple since his return. Koroma obviously hasn't done a right lot. So, although on paper it's full strength, match fitness-wise, probably not, as up and raring to go as what we'd like. But yeah, that were a little bit concerning, because you look at the team sheet before and you actually think, do you know what, we've probably got a chance here, because as you say, it's a decent squad. We're not really filling gaps with players that, playing it wrong position. It's almost what you'd expect to field. And to lose in the way that we did is, well, it's just not good enough, really, is it? It's sort of getting to a point where it's almost embarrassing. If opposition press members are laughing at you, what does that say about how bad the performance was? We get a goal just on half time. You're thinking, do you know what? We've gone in, tails up. What can we do second half? And don't worry, about 15 minutes after that, we're 5-1 down.
Dead and buried, yeah.
Which is terrible, really, isn't it? When you go to watch football and you sat there thinking, if I were Blackburn now, you think, right, tell you what, first 15 minutes, second half, just keep it tight. Don't let them get a second. Don't let them pull it level, because if that happens, generally you go on to win sort of 3-2, don't you? And opposite way around, maybe we should have kept it tight for the first 15 minutes, because, we were 3 in and it's game over before the second half even got started, really. So, yeah, obviously disappointing to lose. I think, again, we've talked about it on here before. We don't mind losing. It's sometimes the manner of the defeat which is a little bit more annoying, and this was definitely one of those occasions for me.
100%. Si, we used to be goalkeepers back in the golden age of the mid-noughts.
A long time ago, Matthew.
Yeah. Back when our bodies functioned properly and we not externally, obviously. And I will always try and defend Ryan Scofield where possible. I've said before, it's fantastic to see local lads who support the club come through and play for the club. I genuinely can't work out what he was doing on that first goal, because it kind of looks like it took him by surprise, but he's got his eyes on it all the way through. And it's just, I can't really make much of a case for him. You can obviously deflect a little bit and say Bakuna maybe should be going with his head at the far post, but it's he's not had the best of games, Ryan. I don't want to hammer him, obviously, too much, but you look at that goal and the fourth goal, and there's the pass back as well, and he seems to have random spells of real confidence crisis, confidence issues. And to me, he shouldn't have done really on that corner, because the save he made as the ball went out for the corner was outstanding.
Yeah, I agree. I think we spoke kind of probably going back a few weeks and months as to whether or not Ryan Scofield should have the number 1 jersey for the remainder of the season. And I was a big supporter of that at the time. I think with any young goalkeeper, you're going to get kind of ups and downs, and kind of their form's going to perhaps peak and trough a little bit more than what an experienced goalkeepers would. I think for me, it's quite obvious to everyone what Ryan Scofield's strengths and weaknesses are. He's a brilliant shot stopper. I think he's got the most saves in a 6-yard box of any keeper in the Football League, but he is susceptible under kind of the high ball. Barnsley exploited that, and kind of Blackburn exploited it at the weekend. And if I'm being honest, I'm amazed that more clubs haven't exploited it this season. But then from that kind of moment, he obviously has quite a difficult game from there on in, at fault for the fourth goal. Like you say, I'd expect him to save that. Probably not so much the other 3, but it was a tough game for him, as it was for everyone. And just before I kind of move on, Matt, I think just to kind of sum up the game from my point of view, it was a much worse and much more disappointing performance than what it was against Norwich. I felt Norwich are a better calibre of opposition than what Blackburn are. They're not world beaters, but they're a better calibre of opposition. And to your point before, if you look at the team sheet we put out against Blackburn, Pippa's playing, Toffolo's playing, Aiton's playing, Koroma's playing. It is a near as damn it as we're going to get full strength squad. And let's not kind of pull no punches or kind of paper over the cracks. That game should have been dead and buried at half time. Blackburn should have put us to the sword and it should have easily have been 3, maybe even 4-0 at half time. The fact we've even got a chance to be still in the game after half time amazes me. And then we go and blow it in the way we did. And for me, I feel like we're getting worse rather than better. And that's what's really concerning. Sorry, that was quite downbeat. But anyway,
no, it's
you see it off my chest.
This is where we've got Rich here to cheer us all up, isn't it? So. But we look at the back four, and I just kind of feel like writing this game off because we've been here before so many times, and there's only so many times you can beat a dead horse, isn't there? Really, with a lot of the stuff. The centre backs were back to probably their worst, I thought, and that's maybe something that didn't get picked up. And I go on about this quite a lot, and it's the man-to-man marking, which I think they really struggle with. You look at the second goal as an example. Pippa goes high on his man drops deep, so Pippa goes high, and what happens is they drop a man into the 10 position, and they just play the ball around the corner where Pippa was. Pippa's playing injured, so he can't get back, and it's poor old Richard Keogh at 35 years of age, who's having to chase, a much fitter, younger footballer. And you look at that, and Harry Toffolo as well plays them all on side as well, and that's a really peculiar goal. And then goal 3, Naby Sarr gives an inexplicable throw-in away really beforehand, which doesn't pick up on the highlights on the website. And then the quick throw, and they both, him and Toff, just kind of Toffolo. I think we've got to understand he's playing with a back. He's playing with a back injury. I think it's fair to say, he's trying to do us a favour by playing through it, just to try and see us over the line. And I think as soon as we're over the line, touch wood, I think Toffolo then goes back to a resting phase. But Naby Sarr just really bizarrely ambled back, and because of the man-to-man system, Keogh then has to come across and leave his man, and his man scores, and it's a complete mess. And goal 5 was like that. So to throw this to you, Rich, I'll simplify, I'll condense that. Do you think maybe, and it's come through here from, there was a question that I saw from Terrier7N2, and he said he's called Carlos to be gone, but it's obvious Phil isn't going to do that. And he says, I do wonder if the players are confused by what Carlos wants. And I've seen this a couple of times, maybe whereby potentially, because Carlos went from his, what we refer to as Carlos ball to a more pragmatic approach, and it seems to go back. Do you think maybe there's just a bit of apprehension and confusion amongst what's expected amongst the players, and we're just seeing a bit of a mishmash of nothing maybe at the minute?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I thought the more pragmatic formation we moved to was to cope with the injuries we had. So I suppose once he gets his players back, he seems very keen to take teams on toe to toe. And obviously we beat Blackburn at home, didn't we? Or did we? Yeah. We draw? We beat them, didn't we?
Yeah, Naby Sarr, that last minute winner.
That's right. Yeah. And I just think he got it completely wrong, because Blackburn are accurate attacking, aren't they? They have been for a couple of years now. I was there for the away game under the Cowleys, and they picked us off with a mistake, pass back, trying to play out from the back. And that game needed a bit more. It needed us to be a bit more cautious with. Really, it wasn't. I think he saw it as everyone's back. Let's get into them, show our quality, show them what we can do. But they're a decent attacking outfit. I don't think they're an amazing defensive outfit or massively strong. And I think they were there for the taking. But tactically, he got it completely wrong again, which is disappointing. I don't really want him to go, because I felt some of the best football we played for years in the first part of the season. But it's a steep learning curve, isn't it? If we stay up, it's by the skin of its teeth. And he just got it wrong. And as you say, they're not pacey enough to play a high line, play against a team with decent attacking intent. We just get picked off. It was poor. In many ways, like Simon says, the worst result of the season, I think.
I felt a bit more. I felt more disappointed by this than Norwich, mainly because Blackburn were, expected to just roll over, and obviously no one rolls over really. So for me, the disappointment of the game really. Well, yeah, we will. I was trying to avoid that. But yeah, so essentially that I don't really, like I said, I don't really want to go over the game too much. You know, we essentially could have shipped 10 on the day. We were all over the place, and to me, there does look to be some sort of confusion with what's expected of the players, and maybe the communication is a little bit out. But I want to concentrate on something a little bit more positive from that game as well. And guess what, Poz? It's returned. Hang on, I need to work out which button I'm on here.
Nayoff is back.
Josh Koroma is back. The Josh Koroma fan club is assembling. What a goal. Hey, that second one. What an absolutely fantastic. And the first one as well, the run, which he goes down the right-hand side. We genuinely have a decent player here. You know, we've been saying since the start of the season, Josh Koroma. I think at first it was not so much tongue-in-cheek, but it was more based on a potential, you know, the fan club thing, you know, getting early, you know, we were here first kind of thing. You know, like when everyone used to think Coldplay was good and then went mainstream and it's like, nah, Coldplay rubbish, that kind of thing. When Josh Koroma plays for England, we'll be like, useless. But for now, we absolutely love this guy. And that second goal was fantastic. He's got seven goals in 18 games. Josh Koroma puts him joint top scorer with Fraser Campbell again, I think. And if you sort of look at that and you try and extrapolate that over the course of a season, that's sort of 16, 17 goals a season from out wide. And that's a really fantastic season. Obviously, it hasn't happened, but, you know, if you try and extend that period, you know, that's sort of the, what am I trying to say here? If you try and extend that condensed period across, you know, the full season, it looks good. And for me, and there was a little bit of discussion because, you know, Cozzy is Carlan Grant's number one fan. You know, remember when Thomas Bradshaw drew Carlos Grant leaving on the train and Cozzy was there to wave him off on the platform, etc., which is fantastic. I would go and say that Josh Koroma now is a better player than what Carlan Grant was for his last season. You look at Grant in terms of open play, I think he scored something like 10, 11 goals. The rest were penalties. And yep, okay, penalties are goals. But I think Koroma contributes far more in open play. I think if he played up front, it would be better than Carlan Grant because his touch is decent, he's stronger, he can twist into tight spaces. I'm really excited by Josh Koroma. Every time I see him play, I'm really, really excited. And I just hope he's not sold over the summer because I think there's the potential here for a real hero. And next year, you know, Poz, we got the tweet, didn't we, to say, where do you see us in 12 to 36 months? If Josh Koroma's still here, you know, there's a chance we can move forward. What do you guys make? Rich, what do you make of Josh Koroma then? We've obviously not seen him for a while, but he seems to have picked up where he left off.
Yeah, I love him. You know, like it was a breath of fresh air beginning of the season, how much it felt like he'd come on, wasn't it? His ability to hold the ball up, particularly, something we've really been missing. So, you know, we can knock it down the channels to him, and he seems to be capable physically against just about anyone, you know, and obviously brilliant finisher as well. Pretty right-footed, and I know teams got wise to that a little bit with Grant, but I agree his all-round game seems better, and I was concerned really that after an injury we'd get a Koroma from last season who, well, we didn't see loads of him, but, you know, I didn't. You worried, aren't you, that maybe he'd had a sort of purple patch and he's going to come back and he won't be the same, but delighted to see him sort of pick up where he left off, and I completely agree that he's one we need to hold on to, don't we, and get the best season or two out of him before we do cash in, if that's the intention for the younger players we bring through. It'd be good to see some more of him first.
Go on, Poz. You look like you've got a fire in it. For me, I think Richard's right there. I think the longer we have him, the higher the value will go. And so therefore, Phil, board, let's keep him for a little while and let's see him grow. What do you reckon, Poz?
Yeah, I mean, if he starts off next season, I say as he's finished off this one, if he continues like the form, you know, that he had early season. But yeah, he's one of them. You sort of look at Koroma, and he's not one of those that you think, right, let's build the team around him, because the position that he plays sort of out on the left, it's not really that sort of position. But he is he's one of those that you've got to. He's the one to aspire to now in the squad. He's sort of his best player, and we need to bring on players that we've already got to that sort of level. And obviously over the summer when we're recruiting, that is sort of like, for me, the bar is set at that standard now. You're obviously always going to have your few star players and stuff, but really we need everybody up to that level to have a fighting chance next year. If he starts off well and scores some, then January comes. You know, it might be a bit of a struggle to hold on to him. Obviously, we managed to keep Grant longer than we might have expected to, but obviously in the end, money talks, and if rumours are to be believed, and about money at the club and the way that Phil's trying to run it, as in buy cheap, sell high, and reinvest, then if you can get double figures for him, it's going to be really difficult to turn down, isn't it? Especially when we do need so many new players. So if someone comes in over the summer, it could be one of maybe 2, 3 at a club that we can actually sell. So it might be a case of the injury, if we do stay up, might have been a good thing for us in the long run. I know that sounds silly, but if he's missed that many games, clubs might just hold off and see if he can replicate that form over a bit of a longer period.
I thought you were going to bring the whole thing down there, Poz. You seem to be going down a slope of negativity, and then you've saved
so
it.
Draw you in and then bring
yeah,
you
drew us in. You had us in the first half, but yeah.
I think for me, Matt, is surpassed all expectations. I was a little bit apprehensive at the start of the season. It was obviously replacing Carl and Grant, top goal scorer, kind of the talisman of the team, if you like, the last kind of 18 months. And Koroma had come off the back of an unproductive spell, for want of a better word, at Rotherham, not really featured in the Danny Cowley team when he took over, despite us having some quite serious injury problems at certain times. So it's great that he's kind of surpassed certainly my expectations, and I think the expectations of the majority of Huddersfield fans, and he's become the one, or maybe one of 2 kind of shining lights this season. For me, very much probably player of the year. I hope we can hold on to him. But to kind of, I think, Poz's point, if a Premier League club or a club at the top half of the Championship comes in and offers a deal that's kind of, I don't know, £8-9 million plus, becomes very difficult to turn down.
Higher. And a loan back for 3 years, that'll do.
It's tricky, isn't it? Because I know the club have made noise about as strategy. So it's one of those where if you're a club looking at somebody like Koroma, you want to get in quick, don't you? Because you might get him a little bit cheaper than you might do if you wait. Obviously, COVID's affected all clubs, so there's not loads and loads of money knocking around. But these clubs that are coming down, Sheffield United coming down from the Premier League, they might be the ones to sort of take a punt on him. And if you weigh 5 million in front of us, is it? Although you want 10. Are you realistically going to get that? It'll be more likely 5 with add-ons, I'd imagine, or something like that. But yeah, like I say, fingers crossed that injury has just put people off just enough to want them to wait another 6 months.
A question to you guys. Do you think Sorba Thomas has the potential to emulate Josh Koroma or not?
Well, if you look at Josh Koroma last year, I think you've also got to factor in Carlos. I think you've got to give Carlos credit for Josh Koroma as well. I think that's one thing. He's definitely improved. He's fitter, stronger under Carlos. Sorba Thomas can be boring and say time will tell. I like how
it is very boring.
I like how
got splinters in your bum, Matthew, sitting on the fence there.
I was going to say I like when Thomas comes on. I like how he goes at people. I like how he's got that no fear in him. How he wants to impress. Yeah, I do like that. I think there's a good player in Sorba Thomas. I hear good things behind the scenes, how he likes to, how he's very keen to improve himself and he takes a lot of things on board. So I think that's really key, in terms of a footballer. Do they want to learn? Do they want to keep striving for to be greater? And he does, by all accounts. So I think there's definitely potential in Sorba Thomas. So maybe we've got a pretty decent one in the long run there. But as of now, look, if we're safe, give him more minutes. I thought it was great when he came on at Norwich. It was a real refreshing performance. Next season, yeah, maybe, but he can play on both flanks. So I expect him and Danny Grant to push further next season. But to the level of Koroma this season, I'd be very surprised. But let's give him something to go for. He's got Koroma's on the perch. Let's see if Sorba Thomas can knock him off. Splinters in the perch. There you go.
Got Danny Grant hopefully to have a look at as well, haven't we? When he finally breaks through, I was looking forward to seeing him. So maybe there's some light there, but obviously inexperienced players, aren't they? They're not all necessarily gonna have a Koroma start to the season, are they?
No, I think
I've got some. I know very little about Danny Grant. In the same way, I know quite little about Sorba Thomas as well. He's always had a tough run or a lot of bad luck kind of in his short tenure at Huddersfield, hasn't he? Kind of one injury. I think came back, didn't he, Matt, in a B team game, featured for half an hour and pulled his other hamstring.
Yeah, he's done both hamstrings, hasn't he? Yeah.
So I guess first and foremost, hopefully gets fit, kind of has a good pre-season, and we go from there really. But yeah, kind of in a season that's been quite challenging, hopefully they're kind of two kind of brief lights to latch onto.
The next season, yeah. Well, that's the plan, isn't it, Poz? You know, the plan that they've got in place at the minute is to sell. But if you ever read Soccernomics, which is something that came out years ago, and Nigel Clibbins used to hold a copy, you know, like a Bible, and take it around with him, didn't he, at one point? I think every time he went to stayed away, you know, he'd ask for a copy in his top shelf rather than the Bible. But, you know, you look at that, and they always say that the idea of selling somebody for value is when you've already got someone in the building. And, you know, so if we do sell Josh Koroma, then I do dare say that Town may not spend something, but they will then say, look, this replacement's already in the building and he's already building towards taking that. And I think that's the right way to go, don't you, Poz?
Yeah, I mean, from a financial
as long as the guy's good enough, yeah. But, yeah.
Yeah, obviously you've got to have somebody coming in, you know, to fill the boots, literally in football. It's a good sort of plan: buy low, sell high. To me, though, you've got to, if you do sell for a lot of money, you've got to then either, like I said, have someone who's literally ready to step straight up, or you've got to reinvest that money. Otherwise, all you do is you just tread water forever, because any good player that comes through, you get rid of. Then you start again, and then you bring somebody through and, you know, get rid of them, and it just kind of works in a cycle of that. So it depends what happens with the money, doesn't it? That's the crux of selling these players. We're always going to be, you know, if you look back over at Town's history, there's always that one that we do sell, Caroline Grant. You know, most recently went for decent money, and obviously situation at club at the moment probably meant that we hadn't reinvested that money like we may have done in the past. But if these youth players that are coming through can stop us, you know, would you sell one player for 10 million as an argument's sake, and then buy 3 players to strengthen the entire squad? Yeah, you do, don't you? And you build a squad of 18, 20 players that are all first team ready. So when we're talking about, you know, selling these players, it depends what happens with that money. If it just goes on normal day-to-day running expenses, then, you know, is it worth keeping that player to get you up, or, you know, progress up the league? We saw a fine balancing act in it, and there were people there with better insights into finances than any of us on this call right now. We can speculate on what might be going on, but, you know, until accounts are published, you don't know how much money we need to raise.
Yeah, and there's like all that sort of stuff. There's player amortization as well. I can never pronounce that word. Is it amortization? Rich, you help me out. You're a CEO. I can't even speak. I can't speak.
Yeah, amortization, isn't it?
Yeah. So that means it gets drip fed. Yeah. So that. Sorry, Rich, go on.
No, like, as you say, it means it's drip fed in the money, doesn't it? You know, you pay off the asset over the length of the term, kind of thing. But yeah. I hope Koroma's not gonna go this summer. It feels premature to me. I think we need another season out of him. You know, I think they'd be more likely. I think O'Brien would more likely be the one that was kind of cashed in on, for want of a better word. And I've read Soccernomics. It's a good book, isn't it? And I take the point. You know, the model makes sense. You know, if you can get good value for players and you can find other good ones, you can sort of get, because I don't think players are. You can't look at players objectively. If they have a hot streak, it's not necessarily going to continue. Different players work better at different clubs. You know, we've seen it in the past, haven't we? With Torres from Liverpool to Chelsea, that kind of thing. You know, I think if you have a good season and the player's value is at its highest, sometimes that's a good point actually to cash in, because you're going to get more than they are actually worth. You know, but not sure any of our players are quite there, because the season's been so dismal, hasn't it? That's the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we should go now to our chat in YouTube just to see what you guys have been saying. So Damien Wells says, Saturday was one of the worst performances of the season so far. Schofield having frisbee hands and woeful defending led to the results. Saturday is huge now, a point, and we should be safe. I've never heard frisbee hands before. Quite like that. Dan Peckett says, we played Blackburn. Someone should have told the players. Steve Blackburn says, if we concede, and especially early, we have severely psychological issues in turning games around, must be addressed as soon as possible. And I guess that is the issue with needing leaders throughout the pitch. And we've got them. Keogh's there at the back. People might not like him, but he is a leader. Hoggy's there. He's a leader. Fraser Campbell. There are enough people there to hopefully carry some through. Let's have a look. So Lee Oates doesn't think Scofield is a championship goalkeeper. Clubs are now targeting with crosses. And then we've got Dan Peckett says he does like Scofield, and I'm going to leave that there, Dan, because the rest of it is not very nice towards Ryan Scofield. So we all like Ryan Scofield. But yeah, Dev makes a good comment there with, your back four needs to have a bit of faith in your goalkeeper. But the thing is, playing in front of Nabisar or playing behind Nabisar can't be the easiest thing anyway. Nabi's a top class. We have a thing, Rich, whereby if Nabisar plays well, we'll call him Naby Moore, after Bobby Moore. And then if he's terrible, we'll call him Gordon Tuxar, after Gordon Tucker, the ex Huddersfield Town legend, if you like. But that's what you get with Nabisar. Sometimes he's fantastic. So just scooting through, it is pretty much a lot of the same stuff. So Josh Koroma fan club here. We got Steve Blackburn says Josh Koroma's quality. We've missed him and plenty since he was injured. And Paul Gibson makes a good point about Koroma and Rowe being the biggest positives of this season. Aaron Rowe in the last few months, we mentioned a couple of weeks ago, has been a real positive. And when you talk about Soccernomics as well, and you say Josh Koroma gets sold, Aaron Rowe is very much on the fringe now of a bigger breakthrough. So we've got players who may be able to take on that mantle if we do sell him. Whereas if we sold Harry Toffolo, you've seen how we've struggled for a left back this season, and we don't really. Although Ben Jackson scored for Bolton the other day, which was great to see, I don't think we've got anyone ready made yet to come in. So that'll be more difficult, and where that model falls down. So thanks guys for your comments. I'm just trying to read them through. I need stronger glasses, so it's in this small box. So we'll move on. And David May says Danny Grant reminded him of Adam Hamill based on his highlight reel. Decent enough threat, very direct. And Tom Bradshaw, hi Tom, says Sorba Thomas is a very championship player build, which I like. It looks strong. We'll be excited to see him a bit more next season. So there we go. And a lot of people mentioning Jordan Rhodes will be up front next season with Josh Koroma. So there we go. And there's a chat breaking out, and there's a Thomas Burhouse as well in the chat box as well. Richard, keeping an eye on you. Yeah, there you go.
It's in the other room. Keeping it clean.
Yeah, he's asking, should we keep hold of Bakuna or trigger the extension and then cash in? I think the idea would be to trigger the extension and cash in, but the issue there is if it's like last summer when nobody actually offers the money you want, you get a player who's not really that bothered for 12 months. It's a dangerous game if it just depends how good your contacts are and how good the interest is. So let's move on to Carlos Corberán. He now casts a very full-on figure. I feel a bit sorry for Carlos. There's a picture of him after the game. He looked white as a sheet. He looked really disappointed. You watched the interview with Oggy afterwards. His head's down. I don't like to see that. Carlos is not, without it sounding bad, he's not the most charismatic, is he? When he comes across in his interview, like David Wagner, you were hanging on every word, weren't you? Carlos is, you kind of dip in and out a little bit when he talks because he's, got kind of single-toned and very to the point, quite intense. But he's not a dislikable guy by any stretch of the imagination. So when you see somebody who's quite down, you do worry a little bit. And, he's the leader around the place. I'll make this into a bigger point as well, Poz, and we'll bring in some of your stats as well. There's a lot of anger and disappointment around, there's so many different emotions going around the football club at the moment. There's apathy. People are saying, "Oh, I'm not renewing season tickets." It's even crossed my mind, not to renew next season. Probably will. You get people who are angry. People want to protest. People talking about protests. I don't know if that's serious at this stage. There's a couple of people. Danny. What Danny Greenwood's like. Mischief maker. But you never know who's serious and who isn't. But there seems to be several emotions. I'm just wondering where you guys are at, because there's apathy. It sounds like I'm going to start naming dwarfs here, but there's apathy, anger, all sorts. There's all sorts. Protest. That's a good name for a dwarf. Where do you guys sit? Because Poz, bringing into your stats, one I've got here is, we've seen our expected goals this season. Okay, not everybody buys into expected goals, but it's a decent framework to kind of show where Town maybe should have been this year rather than where we've been. It gives a fair balance, or as fair a balance as what there is out there. And it says that we've got the 6th worst attack this season and the 3rd worst defence. So it shows that we're not great at either end of the pitch at the minute, which is obviously a worry. If we'd have had Koroma firing all season, obviously that makes a difference, as do the centre-back injuries. But Poz, this is why Town fans are starting to be a bit depressed as well. You know, it is depressed, you know, coming onto this podcast every week, talking about a 7-0, a 5-2, etc. It's hard to put a positive spin on it. It's hard to keep coming back and be nice to everybody, you know, without feeling angry and, you know, and wanting to lash out because you've got a platform. But obviously with a platform comes some form of responsibility as well. So you have to be balanced. But you've got some stats here which make for a reading and an understanding as to why Town fans are just a bit miffed at the minute. And it's just a case of when it rains, it pours, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, like you say, Carlos is, you know, seems a little bit downbeat, and you know, take a step back and you just kind of think, well, he's the manager. If he's feeling like that, then he's the person responsible for sorting that out. He picks the team, he picks the tactics. If they're not working, he's got to do better at his job. You know, no one else can really assist him in that. You know, he's got his backroom staff and stuff, but ultimately he's the manager. So it's up to him to make it better. But yeah, coming on to sort of the wider point with regards to the feeling within the fan base, I'd sort of, after matches and stuff like that, you sort of think, oh, you know, let's try and analyse what's going on. Why is it going wrong? Why are we like this? Why are we in this particular state as it stands? And I know we've chatted a few times sort of off air saying that there's just that many things at the moment that you can't really put your finger on one, two, or even three things. It just seems to be pretty much everything is just not quite right. You know, there's been a lot of injuries. There's recruitment. Is it as good as what it can be? Is Carlos as good as he was made out to be? Is the messages coming out of the club from the top of the hierarchy right? You know, it's all these kind of things that all intermingle, and it just seems to be a bit of a mess.
Snowballs, doesn't it? Though little.
Yeah, you look back over, you know, last 3 years. We'll go with that. It's quite a decent time for him to look at. Obviously, one of those were Premier League season where we were, you know, pretty pathetic. I think when they won 3 matches in that, so it kind of does bring them down. But over the last 3 years, played 128. We've only won 28 games, drawn 30. We've lost 70. We've only scored 121 in 3 seasons and conceded 214. On average, we're looking at playing 4.5 games per win, which as a fan, you know, call it 1 in 5 if you want to round it up. It's 1 win in 5 going into a season. It's not really going to entice you to, you know, to get down and buy a season ticket. Like I say, a lot of that were, you know, one season with Premier League where we were abysmal. So you just go back under 2 seasons, and again, it doesn't mean not much better. 90 played, only won 25. Drawn 23, lost 42. We haven't even scored 100 goals. We sit on 99 at the moment. And against it's 138. So I think I mentioned last week on my little rant that I did to you, Matt, which you played on air.
I've still got the hang on.
Still got the little ogre theme tune, have you?
There you go.
I think the thing that you look for most
have laid
another example last night, another dropped ball.
Okay,
I think the thing that you, as a fan, it's all about hope, innit? I don't know about you guys, but for me, it's just a hope. You can be terrible one season, and you get to May, and you have a couple of weeks away, and you sit there and you think, "Oh, that were crap. That I'm never going again." And then June comes round, and July comes round, and by August you think, "Tell you what, this season we're going to get promoted, and we're going to win league." And that's generally the cycle of a football fan, isn't it? Over some year, you sign a few players, and your hopes and expectations reignite, and that's what kind of gets you moved for it. But I just don't feel that'll happen this summer with the fan base, given what's happened for 3 consecutive seasons now. Obviously, recruitment's a massive one for this summer. Recruitment over the last few years hasn't been great, so there's no real hope that that's going to improve.
Same people, effectively, isn't it?
Yeah, it's basically the same people. So why will that suddenly come to fruition?
Your head of football operations has changed 3 times, you know, 2 or 3 times in the last 3 years, but the same people behind that, the head of recruitment is still there, and his team is still there. So, you know, the argument is, do they get better or?
you need a lot of players as well. It's not like we think, oh, if we can just get 1 or 2 in, we might be all right. Looking at the players that are going to leave, we're looking at, 11, well, certainly 10 plus to make just a squad up of decent numbers. And then are there going to be enough quality? I think one of the things that dramatically let us down this season is when the first or perceived first 11 have been missing, the guys that are coming through are just nowhere near good enough. And we need at least 20 players that are championship quality. Otherwise, we're just going to struggle again. And why would you bother giving up your time, your money, all that effort just to have another season like this? I mean, Rich, Simon, feel free to come in and either echo my thoughts or go against them. But for me, like you say, I'll get a season ticket because it's just what you do, innit? You go and you're good and you go and you're bad. But I won't be going this season with any hope or expectation. And it'll be one of them that if we continue as we've done for the last 3 years, although I'll have my season ticket, I've probably missed games, whereas before it were, you'd move heaven and earth, you'd finish work early, you'd rearrange stuff to get to a match, whereas now probably won't bother, which is sad, really.
How about you guys, Rich? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I know where you're coming from, and I read it all as well, and everyone's obviously really upset, aren't they? And I tend to be an optimist where the club's concerned, because otherwise I don't really see the point of having a team. If it's just going to bring you down. So I tend to look on the bright side, and it's been difficult, hasn't it? The second part of the season. I mean, I think we're still clearly not reached the bottom from the Premier League problems we had in that second season. So first season down was supposedly about a kind of reset, and the Cowleys came in and kept us up to try and stop the plunge through the league. And this season, I think it started really brightly. It felt like, actually, this guy knows what he's doing. As I said earlier, I saw a lot of the best individual, the best team goals I can remember, to be honest. Since promotion certainly, and possibly before that, there were some cracking goals there. And I thought, this guy knows what he's doing. We're good, but clearly, as Poz said, we were really let down with this depth. I think they gambled, because clearly we're short of money, probably because of the pandemic, and they thought they had a look at it on paper and thought we've got enough here. And I think you could argue up until Christmas we probably did have enough, but as soon as the injuries bit, the lads to come through they're just not good enough, are they? They're not up to the standard necessary to carry a championship team. So
do you think, though, Rich, that might be quite good just very briefly, in the long run? Because we've seen Aaron Rowe, haven't we, all of a sudden burst through in that, because he's had increased game time. He's burst through. Sorba Thomas has a bit. So there is a slight argument. It could benefit us in the long run, I guess, as long as we stay up.
I get the feeling the gamble, it's not great, is it, to feel like if we stay up, the management would feel the gamble's paid off, but perhaps they will, because it is unprecedented times, and if we get these guys off the books who clearly don't want to be here, costing us a lot of money, we need that kind of reset. And I just think fans' memories are pretty short. Saturday was hurtful, really, because I thought we were good for at least a draw, and I think that has knocked my optimism a little bit more than it had done before. And I thought if we'd have seen the season out, you'd have been a lot more confident. But even the criticism that the recruitment team get, and I don't know any of them, but we've spent the first 10-15 minutes talking about all the good prospects we've bought coming through. So they don't do everything badly, do they? And I loved watching Eiting. I think he's fantastic. He's a class above when he's on his game. So it's not all terrible. And I do think the effect the pandemic's had has meant a lot of people have got a lot of time on their hands. They're spending it on social media. They're like, social media encourages people to shout loudly, and being negative travels a lot further than being positive. I just feel like there is a bit of an overreaction. I think it is bad, and the stats bear that out. But I don't think all hope is lost yet. Let's get these guys off the books who don't want to be here. Invest the money wisely. Give us a full pre-season and see how we get on. The worry is, you can't let him have the whole season, probably. So if he gets 10, 20 games in and it's looking bad, he's probably got to go. But do we really want to start all this hunt for a manager? Then pay off all his staff, pay him off, get rid of his play. I don't want to go through that cycle again. And I saw enough early on in the season that I thought he's got something about him, but maybe he needs an addition, like a management figure, and so Carlos becomes a bit more of a coaching head, and there's someone else in there, but I don't know whether he'd want to work like that. We don't know, do we? I don't know, but yeah, that's how I'm kind of feeling. It's we had a bit of a gamble, and I mean, hopefully it looks like we're staying up, doesn't it? But the back half of the season's been a bit like the Premier League years, hasn't it? The second Premier League season. It's just felt a bit desperate at times.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, things snowball, don't they, as well? And, sentiment carries, if you like. And there's people who are a bit unsure, and they see a lot. Like I sometimes am a bit unsure, and then you get swayed a little bit with the crowd, don't you? And things. I guess that's just the nature of social media. But I think some of it is obviously very, very right. Fans are very right to be able to feel that way for me as well. And I don't think any of us would say that they're not. But it's a very interesting time, but for the wrong reasons. You would guess, Simon. We've taken some hammerings this year. So some of the performances at the second half of this year are worst in memory, I would say, some of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to come back to your original question, Matt, around kind of Carlos and his persona. For me, what's really evident when he kind of speaks to the press post games and on the touchline is that he cares. He genuinely cares. You can tell the performances, the results, the points tally, the goal difference, whatever it may be, really matters to him. And I think kind of it perhaps demonstrates that more than other managers previously. So I think that's kind of a personality trait to admire. I think for me, and this might be more a reflection of me as a person than anyone else, I sense he's trying to overcomplicate things at times. I look at the formations week in, week out. I watch him on the touchline. He's forever tinkering with things. He's forever kind of asking players to play in different positions. He's forever shouting at people, do this, do that. And I almost feel as though it's an overload of information that has led to some confusion. And in lots of walks of life, football, I don't think is any different. I think simplicity can be quite key. Yes, he's been hampered by the injuries we spoke about. To what extent is his training the cause of those injuries? I don't really know, but that's something that's obviously been rumoured for a little while now. And the fact is perhaps flogging people a little bit too hard. But for me, I get an overriding sense that he cares. But look, you put me, you put you, you put Rich, put Poz in the job, we'd all care, and sometimes caring is not enough. I'd like to see him probably given a go at the start of next season. I think to Rich's point, a load of upheaval in the summer is only perhaps going to set us further back than it is take us forward, because it will take time to bring in new coaching staff and convey their ideas around recruitment, etc.
Detracts from the player recruitment.
Yeah, exactly. But let's be kind of clear, in the same way Jan's first 8-9 games were really important for him in that second season, and ultimately didn't last the test of time. I think the first 8-9 games of kind of Carlos' season next year will be key. And let's hope the fixture list is kind to him, because if we pull out kind of the 3 relegated teams in those first 8 fixtures, the pressure can mount quite quickly.
Yeah, good points. I thought that's a good point.
I was going to say there, what's nice is just to follow up. It kind of links into what Rich was saying. You don't want to have a revolving door in management as well, because that'll be. If you look at just Phil's tenure, that'd be 3 managers gone, and he's only been in charge.
Yeah, he gets a reputation then as
who's going to want to come in? Because if you don't do well, we've tried a Cowley's where it's a little bit probably boring football but grinds out results. Then we've tried a Carlos that's flamboyant and didn't really get results. So what sort of I like a club to have an ethos. I like a manager to be there, and we play this style of football and changing from style to style to style. If you put players on 3-year contracts and a manager comes in and they're not the players for him, you sat with them like we are now for another couple of seasons, and can the new guy come in and do what he needs to do with those players and stuff? So I think he will be given time, and I think Phil's pretty much come out and said that it'll be given time.
Yeah, he's doubled, trebled down on it, really, hasn't he? Yeah.
I think for me, Matt, where I really struggle is that I look at the players who signed predominantly in January, and for me, they don't align with Carlos's style of football and what he's trying to achieve.
Stopgaps, though, because of injuries, weren't they, a lot of them?
Yeah, because of injuries. And I guess there's some kind of short-term thinking there, and understand why that will be the case, getting us over the line this season. But I look at signings like Richard Keogh, kind of the back end of his career. I look at signings like Sonogo and Nias, kind of big target men strikers. And I kind of think what the vision, as I understood it to be, was kind of fast, kind of sexy football, for want of a better phrase. And I look at what we've signed, and there's some kind of disparity there. And I guess as a fan right now, I'm a little bit confused as to what I'm going to see next season. Am I going to see a switch back to the fast, sexy style football, which we saw at the start of the season, and to Rich's point, was really, really good and great to watch? Or am I going to see kind of a continuation of this kind of more pragmatic style with kind of these, to an extent, journeyman footballers kind of who struggle to hold down a club, etc.
Yeah, and of course, Jordan Rhodes is the big link as well, and that doesn't really seem to align with what we saw pre-Christmas, does he?
Yeah, and it's just that disconnect between what we thought was going to happen, what I think Carlos wants to achieve, what then is coming through the door from a recruitment point of view. I think that just kind of perhaps creates a sense of confusion and perhaps creates a sense of frustration amongst the fans, and maybe leads to some of this unrest. And let's kind of hopefully get out the back end of the season. I think, speak for a lot of people, I'm just fed up now. I want it all done. I'm ready for a break. And hopefully we can kind of see a bit more articulation, implementation of a plan. That would be my hope anyway.
Yeah, well said, Si.
You're right, and it is confusing for fans, isn't it? And Keogh clearly was a sticking plaster. We've got a problem here. Things are going really well. We've gambled. It's gone wrong. We need to put a sticking plaster on this. And then I suppose to double down with Holmes, who potentially can fit Carlos's style. I don't know what you think, Matt. I'm really reminded of Soconomics, actually, to bring it back to that book again.
You have to read it again at this rate. It's been that long.
They've clearly
You're on commission, Rich.
I'm not on commission. No, they've clearly been so damaged by the high earners we've brought in the Premier League not settling at the club, that they're trying to cut the percentages. If you bring back someone who's already been there, he's definitely going to know what he's coming to. So he's got a good chance of success. And that is real Soconomics thinking to me. They've thought on their feet and done that, but to the fans, it doesn't look good, does it? But it works, rather than going to pick loads of Spanish players, loads of French players, and 50% of them not settling in the area. That Dwayne Holmes, Richard Keogh, Jordan Rhodes potentially know exactly what they're coming to. And I think that's the thinking. I mean, it's probably born out of us not having a lot of cash to spend. So try and lower the percentages of them being failures. Let's spend it wisely. And I know it has been confusing though, because Keogh, he doesn't fit into the progression of the club. He's just been brought back as a sticking plaster, it appears, doesn't it, to get us to limp to the end of the season, because we had a real problem that we were shipping to.
I think the only thing I say to that, Rich, is I think the majority of fans, so I agree with everything you say, but I don't think fans almost want Huddersfield Town Football Club to be treated as a business and to play percentages in the transfer market. I think fans want to see some excitement, some ambition, something that's an unknown quantity, because it may be the best thing science bread. It may be utter shite as well, let's be honest. But that unknown element excites people and puts bums on seats. And having watched what we've watched in the case of Dwayne Holmes 3 seasons ago, in the case of Jordan Rhodes, 6-7 seasons ago, it's great. It's logical from a business point of view, but it's not necessarily going to win the hearts and minds of fans, really.
Yeah, I completely see where you're coming from. Yeah, it's. I'm just trying to kind of justify in my head why they might have done it. And obviously, first few games Holmes came back, I was like, maybe he's a lot more physical. And I don't want to write him off yet. I think there's more to come from Dwayne Holmes, but I wasn't massively sad to see him leave the first time, so I felt he was lightweight. So I think he's one of them players who's great in a team when you're on top, and you can have the luxury of a player like Holmes bursting from the middle. But in a battle, perhaps he's not been perfect for us, But I really don't know. I
think just on Dwayne, I spoke to the Second Tier podcast guys the other day as well, and they asked how Dwayne was going, and as I said, not great really. And they said to me in his, I think it was his first season at Derby, he played central midfield consistently week in, week out, and he was there. He said probably their player of the season, and they got into the playoffs that year. And then the season after, they kept shunting him out wide, and they said he's not a winger, and then they kept trying to play him off the front and all over the place. And he had a very similar time to what he's having now. So I think potentially there is that issue that the Carlos has got, where he's got too many midfielders in there at the minute. Lewis O'Brien's obviously the number one. He's not going to drop Jonathan Hogg, and he's playing Carol Eiting. So I think when Dwayne settles in the side in the role that he was picked for, I'll probably judge him from there, because I think he's not really been utilised as what he would want to be. But yeah, I agree with a lot of stuff there. I thought there was some good chat. I think the character of the squad is quite important as well, Rich. Which is you bring back players like Danny Ward, etc., and you know what you're buying back into, don't you? In effect, obviously we didn't know he was going to be injured for most of the season, but in terms of character,
we probably did, though, let's be honest. We all called it that he would be injured for most of the season.
Well, his injury record wasn't that
I
bad
don't disagree with bringing players back if they're there for the right reasons. But the rumours behind why Danny Ward came back, because he wanted to move back to area. Jordan Rhodes, he's local. He's back end of his career. He did well for us. They just seem really lazy signings. And, I take on what Rich says, you know what you're getting from that player, and that player kind of knows what he's getting from the club. But like Jordan Rhodes' instance, he hasn't been here for, 7-8 years. So the whole makeup of the club will be totally different. It's different management team, different.
I think it comes down to money, Poz, because a lot of players demand relocation fees as well. I remember, I'm not going to name the player, but there was one player who wanted a 200 grand relocation fee. He came on a free transfer when Dean was, pretty early on in his tenure. I think they bought towards a house, to move back over, and he got this relocation fee and never relocated. He travelled in from as part of the car school every day. So players for you. So I imagine that will be a struggle. It might be one of the reasons, might not. Who knows? But it might be good just to return to YouTube, because a certain Mr. Richard Kosmala is running amok in the comments section of YouTube. There's a rumor here from Mike Terrier 7N2 says rumors Adi Boothroyd has watched the last 2 games as a replacement. Look, if Adi Boothroyd enters this football club, I think that might be my time to leave, because I just can't. He was one of the first fullbacks I ever saw live, standing in the cowshed. But as a manager, I just find him terrible, unpalatable. I think Adi Boothroyd is the name that sticks, and hopefully he's nowhere near Huddersfield going forward. So let's have a look what else we're getting. So the modernist colorist he mentions that Koroma probably needs a nimble striker up there rather than a Jordan Rhodes type, and maybe Carlos is just experiencing the inexperience, first senior job, and maybe it's something he'll reflect on over the summer and learn. And I know who the modernist colorist, and he's just trying to drop seeds of his Jerry Yates propaganda in there. He's a massive Jerry Yates fan from Blackpool. And obviously that Adi Boothroyd bombshell didn't go down too well in all of this. But Dave May says as well, Dave, I'm sure Dave's a used car salesman. I haven't seen Dave for ages on social media. Always a secret Town fan, Dave, although he used to reckon he was a Chelsea fan. He says all you need to do is look at the form table over the last 20 and 25 games, puts us 23rd. I think there's only Bristol City are worse than us at the minute. Form is temporary, class is permanent. Can we get away with saying that? Maybe, maybe not on this occasion. A couple of others saying Carlos has been found out, but Mr. Kosmala would rather Umbro out than Carlos at the minute. So that's on to our next subject now.
Why is it? What's his beef with Umbro?
I've got no idea. I don't know. Maybe don't get around his man boobs properly or something. And the shirts that come. But it's not that I can talk. But he's he liked Puma. But when I used to scout for Huddersfield, I used to get all the training kits. Used to have to go out in all the training kits and stuff. And Puma was horrible. In terms of fitting, they would give you and it used to make you feel really sort of horrible, because you used to have to get like 2 sizes bigger than what your normal size is, because otherwise it wouldn't fit, because they're all over. But Umbro, my favorite kits that I've ever got, are the favorite training tops and stuff, have always been Umbro. I think their stuff's really, really good. And we'll move on. And Cozzy's asking us to name positives as well. Stop being so negative. I think he's aiming at, and he's been egged on pretty much by the whole group there as well, including a Mr. Thomas Burhouse. So, so Dag Barnett says Phil Hodgkinson has been in charge for 2 seasons now, and we haven't seen much to give us hope for the future. If there was something to cling on to, it would be a start. Sadly, he's been realistic, not negative, and I understand why he would do that. And Cozzy says, give Guardiola, Richard Keogh, and Danny Ward, and let's see what he can do. I would love to see someone like Guardiola just go, do you know what? Man City, I've made my money. I'm going to go to Morecambe and see what I can do. I'd love, it's never going to happen, but I would love a manager just to go, do you know what? Chesterfield. That's where I'm going to be next. Fantastic, wasn't it? Nothing against Chesterfield. So Steve Blackburn's put Magic Rock beer. That's a positive going forward. So there we go, Rich. Yeah, because he says, we won the last 30 minutes 1-0, lads. Take the positives. Yeah, thanks, Cosy.
He's on a wind-up in here.
And Umbro out as well. Umbro out. Bookter, boys, we are here. Told you he's running amok. I think he's had a drink. I think he's been on the Magic Rock as well, judging by this. So,
I think that Umbro deal's quite a good deal. Just coming back to that, I don't see any problem with it. It's good to nail down a kit supplier. It's one job less to worry about every season. Who's going to be supplying your kit? There's, continuity. It's a decent brand. So, fair play for that. At least something's gone right this season.
Yeah, Cossy's definitely on the lash. He's absolutely taken over here. So it's 100%. Yeah, so Umbro. So what do we think of Umbro? So I put a very quick poll out just to gauge opinion on this to see if Cossy's in the if he's in the groundswell of opinion or whether he's in his own little corner as usual with his own opinions. And so far, 86.8% say that they're quite happy with Umbro. So, good stuff. I like Umbro. I think we all like Umbro. Decent kit. Looks pretty good behind Rich at the moment as well. Does that Umbro kit, so it's all good.
I don't know what people are complaining about. The shirts have been decent recently, haven't they? Seem all right. I never wear one. There's one on the wall. I'll have to ask Thomas, see what he puts in the chat. I think they've been all right, yeah. And as you say, good to get longer term stuff tied up. That's the new commercial guy coming in who I've met, seems to be on it, and the club needs to generate some funds and sort this kind of stuff out, doesn't he? So, don't they? So, yeah.
Yeah, Ian Bertley stepped in, and I think sometimes town fans are maybe a bit suspicious. Is that the right word? Of when a new director or a new head role comes in and you don't hear from them. I think town fans are usually like, "What's this guy doing? What's he doing?" But you can see the impact Ian Bertley's having, can't you? Straight away, front of shirt sponsor, back of shirt sponsor, Umbro extended. It's good work, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, I mean, it's what the club needs, isn't it? And I suppose it's a difficult task he's been given off the back of a pandemic with lots of businesses not with spare money to spend on things as frivolous as football clubs, So fair play to him if he's sorting anything out, yeah.
Absolutely.
It
so
shows forward planning though, doesn't it? Which is something we've been lacking massively over the last few seasons. It's like you say, hats off to him. If he's managed to nail down a 4-year deal for a kit and shirt sponsor in advance of next season, he can now concentrate his efforts on other stuff. So, fair play to him.
Yeah, from my point of view, I think Umbro's a good partner to have. I think the shirts are a quality. I think perhaps where some of the fans' frustration may come from is that Umbro, like a lot of suppliers these days, have templates that you work to. So essentially, they would come to you with a series of templates and you need to pick one of those. I think the era of working with smaller manufacturers who would design a bespoke kit for you are gone, sadly. I think kind of clubs bigger than Huddersfield Town will have to adhere to certain templates provided by the big kind of companies. So it's a way of working.
Not many of those side, to be honest. Not many of those clubs about.
No, very true, mate. But yeah, I think it's a good deal to be done. And I think the point around kind of now being able to focus on some other areas to generate some revenue is a really good one.
I put Cosy in timeout and the chat's gone quiet now.
I was going to say, if you're writing a list of things to complain about at town at the moment,
it's definitely. I think it's a good thing. I 100% think it's a good thing.
If that's all Cosy's got to moan about the kit, then he's doing better than what I am.
The kit, the porter cabins. He loves a good random moan. This is why he's good on the podcast. He comes up with some angles that you would never think is a good laugh, but it'll have to be a good laugh in 2 minutes because he's in a 2-minute timeout now on the chat, just so I can read the comments. Sorry, Cosy, I just can't get through the comments because it's just bing, 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 bing on there. So fantastic. It looks as well that people are quite happy with Umbro. Just saying what happened to Bookter. Yeah, what did happen to Bookter? Hummel do some decent ones these days. They bring some decent ones.
Was Bookter the one that had the Central Murfield kit? I mean, that was...
Yeah, that was 80s before... was it before Greenhalls? I remember Greenhalls was... I think the first one was Beaver, was it, that I had? Beaver used to make the Greenhalls one from 1990, 91.
It was bad at chafing, was the Central Murfield one, I remember. even as a 6 or 7 year old or whatever, it was, that was a rough texture to it.
I'm getting messages now to free Cosy. This is going wrong in the chat. So Cosy's been, here we go. Free Cosy, hashtag, brilliant. He'll be back in about 30 seconds. Right. Okay. So we'll go on to the next. So we're all happy with Umbro. I think it's a good deal. Good kits. I think we might see people talk about their own. My mate Tom, he mentions, he wants black socks every time. If he's in charge of Huddersfield, it's black socks every year. And then you hear other people go, it's the wrong shade of blue. It's one of those where you'll never come. Everyone will never be happy with one kit. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things, isn't it? A kit. As long as it's blue and white stripes, I think it's halfway there. So the next thing on the agenda and the final thing is the Huddersfield Town Supporters Association had nominated the stadium to be an asset of community value. Some people, without reading the website, you know what I'm like, website, too much work. So I just went straight to Alisdair Bell from the HTSA and did a little interview with him. So what I'll do is I'll loop through the interview that I did with Alisdair, and then we'll have a chat with it when this is finished. Alisdair, you recently nominated the John Smith Stadium to be an asset of community value. Why did you choose to do this, and what are the benefits for the stakeholders in the stadium, the fans, and the community?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me on. I'm a big fan. I guess I should start explaining what ACV status, or asset of community value status, is. So to those who aren't aware, it means a property can't be sold without community groups like HTSA being informed of the wish to sell, and for those groups being given the right to submit a rival bid. So when it's put up for sale, community groups have got 6 weeks to scrutinise the sale and decide if they want to make a bid themselves. If they decide to make a bid, they've got 6 months to raise that money. The seller doesn't have it to accept their bid, though, but what the process does do, it opens up the sale really to public scrutiny and oversight, and just make sure there's transparency over an asset that matters to the public. On top of this, ACV status can be used as a reason to refuse any planning permission or demolition. We're not suggesting there's any danger of demolition at the moment, and the current and proposed stadium ownership arrangements, they're not worrying us at all at this time. But we know as town fans, a lot can happen in 5 to 10 years. So we decided to nominate the stadium as an ACV just to make sure it's protected sort of against anything that might happen in the future. And something's always there. Stay at home is always there for the football club, the rugby club, the wider community. I've got to say, Tristan Wooler, from the HTSA board, he deserves a lot of the credit for filling in all the paperwork, and there was a massive amount for him, a lot of hoops to jump through. But now we've done that, it's on the register for assets of community value. So restrictions being placed on the land registry and the property for the next 5 years, when Tristan will then have to start filling in paperwork all over again. But on a serious note, it can be extended.
There we go. So important things happening with the stadium. So it's really part of fan power, really, to, I think when you look at football supporters and really what do football supporters matter in the grand scheme of things? Are we just commodities, customers? There's a lot of different ways that supporters are viewed, by football clubs, not all good, in a lot of cases. What this will do is it will allow the fans a little bit of power with regards to the stadium. It's there really to design and protect, the stadium, because it's now an asset of Huddersfield Town's community. It doesn't stop current shareholders from swapping shares. So if Phil wanted to give Ken Davey 40% for whatever reason, it doesn't stop that. It doesn't do anything with the current, is from what I know. If the club goes into administration, though, it should be protected under the terms of the community value, so they can't just sell that off. And essentially it stops, if Kirklees, I won't pick just on Phil, if Kirklees or Ken Davey wanted to sell their percentage to an American investor for an amount, it then allows, the council then have to alert, HTSA guys about that. And then, it gives a supporters group a chance to rival that bid. Obviously, a supporters group's going to struggle to rival what the stadium's worth, but at least it allows a sense of openness and transparency about what's going on. And then, you don't find out that somebody sold a share, 40% share of the stadium for £2 to themselves a couple of years later by accident. That is pretty much... Who knows? I've just started a Huddersfield Giants podcast, so I have to be nice. So, I think this is a really positive step forward. They've also announced a sustainability program as well, which we'll look into maybe in the next week or forthcoming weeks. But for me, there's positive steps happening here, and things like this. When you've got a fan in charge like Dean or Phil, I know people have got their opinions on both at the minute, but you do generally think these guys have got your best interests at heart. But you don't know where you're going to be, 5, 6, 7, 8 years down the line, or who owns the club. And I think things like this are really important to give the fans, some power and a decision and make the fans count again. So what do you guys firstly, I know there's a lot of information just thrown at you there, but I'd be interested to know what people think online and what people think about this in general.
Hard to see the negatives, isn't it? I mean, yeah, I was quite pleased to read it on Twitter earlier. I know it's used quite extensively in the pub business. I've seen it happening before. Pubs are obviously in the same category, seen as community assets often, and I think anything that brings the fans and as kind of stakeholders, if you want to use that word, closer to the club's got to be seen as a good thing, hasn't it? I suppose. Yeah, I'm trying to play devil's advocate and think why it would be bad. I mean, I suppose if we'd have done it to Leeds Road, would we still be in Leeds Road? But it's in the circumstance we're in now with a relatively new stadium, or that's showing some signs of age. I think it does need protecting. It's seen as very, very important to people's lives, isn't it? And I can't wait to get back in there and watch him play. So yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Poz, you're the man at the front of the cowshed loyal with the megaphone, etc. So things like this are obviously important to you as well to have that home. What did you see of this? And obviously, well, not obviously, but this doesn't impact Huddersfield Town's ability to take over running of the stadium as well. So any changes that you guys would make with well, maybe not John Robinson, he's not always the most forthcoming, is he, with stuff. But, if you wanted to take something to the stadium, it's, there's going to be no changes. So, it's not going to change anything with hosting the flags and et cetera that you guys keep to one side. It seems like a good move for the cowshed loyal as well. It shouldn't really alter or spoil anything for you guys. And I suppose, having extra people on board and in that, when it comes to taking parts of the stadium as well. Obviously, this is not specifically what it's about, but it's more about fan power and about where you want to be in the stadium, and it's all positive, really.
Yeah, I can't really see any negatives in it whatsoever. Just for the transparency purposes, as Rich touched on, more than anything, you've seen stadiums transfer hands through companies. Bury, for example, I think Derby owner managed to sell stadium, Sheffield Wednesday, if I've understood that situation correctly. And obviously a stadium itself, it's probably more the land that's the value for whoever wants to buy it, rather than an actual stadium, because what more can you do with them? Play football, obviously concerts and stuff like that. But the more fans have a say in a football club, the better for me. You've only got to look at recent events in the Premier League in regards to the ESL submission, and there's a lot of people talking about 50+1 voting rights and stuff coming in, and any sort of fan power, in my opinion, is the club belong. I mean, Dean used to say it. He's just a custodian. The club belongs to the fans, and that might sort of come back and bite him in bum now with what's going on and stuff like that. You talk about Dean and Phil being fans. Yeah, they are fans, but first and foremost, and certainly with what's happening with regards to Dean taking his money back, they are businessmen as well. And does money rule fan? And it seems that it does in football quite a lot of times. So anything that can protect the club from that situation occurring, I think as it stands, we only own 40% anyway. But if somebody wanted to buy that 40%, or the Giants 40%, and that would be 80%, and that they could get hold of, we can, as fans, maybe, even if it just makes it more awkward, it might just put people off. I don't think a fan group would be able to raise the amount needed to rival a bid and own it. But if someone wanted to come in and make a quick sale, it's obviously not going to be a quick sale now, is it? So from that aspect alone, for me, it's definitely a positive, and I can't really see. The only negative is that poor fella who has to fill out forms out again, really, in a few years' time.
Tristan, yeah, bless you, Tristan, for for all the work that you have to do. Simon, finish this off for us and let us know how important you think this is.
Yeah, I mean, I share the views of Rich and Poz, really. There's very little I can see as to why you wouldn't progress down this road. The only build I would have is that it seems quite commonplace amongst a number of other football clubs. A quick Google tells me Hillsborough, Ellen Road, the Valley, etc., all have similar status and have done for a few years now. So,
if you want to look for a negative, speaking of Valley, look at Valley Parade and you Google Valley Parade and it'll come up the owner, the Gordon Gibb Pension Fund. And that's almost like, I know we like to laugh at Bradford because, they spent more time in League Two in the last couple of years than we have in our history, etc., etc., etc. But on a serious note, you don't want anything like that. Well, you don't want it to happen to Bradford, really. But you definitely don't want it to happen to Huddersfield Town, whereby, the gate receipts are topping some, well, not necessarily what's happening, but, they're topping up somebody's bank account or he's holding it to ransom. And, this is
once you get into that situation, Matt, it's very difficult to unpick it then as well, isn't it?
Of course, yeah. It's fantastic.
I think one of the things, Matt, just to chip in on that is I think you sent me a message about, I can't remember what team it was now, Northampton, Scunthorpe, was it?
I don't know. I sent loads of messages.
I don't know.
I can't remember. You sent me a message anyway where the owners effectively got into a lot of debt.
Oh, yeah, there was a bit of, Swan. Yeah, the Swan guy. He'd written off a load of debt for 11 million, but he was then sat on a 90 million.
Yeah, so you can get
value.
It protects just that instance alone, So he's basically up 80 odd million, isn't he? Because he's not got physical cash, but he's now got an asset that's worth.
Yeah. My understanding is that it won't stop. My understanding is it won't stop that. But so if Phil wanted to sell it to an American investor, for 20 million, for example, what that does is it gives us 6 months to drag it out and come up with a rival bid. I don't physically think it has the power to stop it, but it gets the news out in the open, and you can also activate your certain fan groups, etc. from there. So there is that positivity. But if someone was adamant that they wanted to sell a share to somebody for an X amount of money, then you either match it or it goes through, really. But it's still a positive step, and I think we'll call it there for this evening as well. I think we've rambled on long enough. Everybody seems to be logging off online now, so even Thomas Burhouse, you can he's been quiet for a while. He's bored of you, Richard. So we'll
watch the Champions League, I think.
Yeah. So final thoughts. Carlos is down but not out, but has to deliver improvements. But there's good news on Umbro, and a big congratulations to the HTSA as well. So a big congratulations as well to Richard for reopening in the pandemic, and hopefully everything goes well down at Magic Rock as well. And thank you all for listening online, and we'll be back again next week after the Coventry game. So look out for Brady's preview, and fingers crossed for a better result. So thanks, everyone.
There's a team that is dear to its followers. The colours are bright blue and white. They're a team of renown, and they're the pride of the town, and the game of football is their delight. And all the while upon the field of play, thousands loudly cheer them on the way. Often you can hear them say, who can beat the town today? And then the bells will ring so merrily, and every goal shall be a memory. So town, play up and bring that cup back to Huddersfield. So town, play up and bring the cup back to Huddersfield.